Hi guys. I am so excited today because my friend Dolores is with me and she has seen some beautiful things happen through quilting, which is another form of art ministry. So many times we think about art ministry as just this one way of doing things. Or maybe you're going, I have no idea what art ministry is. So today I'm really excited to get to interview Dolores and have her share with us a different way that God has shown her to use her gifts and the things that she's been doing for a long time to connect with people and see healing. So that being said, Dolores, I'm going to have you introduce yourself. She is in Virginia. So tell us just a little bit about you. Tell us about just your community, where you live, how long have you been in Virginia, and what's that like?
Okay. Hey, hi, Ashley. Thanks for having me. My name is Dolores Crooke, as Ashley said. I have been in Virginia 20 years. I live in King William, Virginia, which is just outside of Richmond. So we're about maybe 20 minutes outside of Richmond. I have been quilting for 20 years. I would drive by quilt shops before we moved to Virginia, and I'd be like, oh, I just want to go in and see all the pretty fabric and the colors. And finally took the plunge and made my first quilt. And from that point, I was hooked. And I just loved making beautiful quilts and giving them away or saving them if they were seasonal quilts. I started sewing when I was a little girl. I was probably 8 or 9. And my mom said, if you want Barbie clothes for Barbie, you're going to have to learn how to make them. And so I would cut up old clothes and I would make Barbie clothes out of the old clothes that we were getting rid of. I started a small collaborative, we call it, through our church, and I have incorporated quilting through that. And our church is part of a bigger multi-site church, and we have a local campus here. And we've just explored different things within that ministry to try and involve people.
I love that. And so when you say collaborative, that's a word that I keep hearing right now, which I love it. It's, this idea that multiple different people are coming together. Is it been a creative collaborative? Have they been open to the idea of quilting, or is that like, we're not sure how that works?
Yeah. So I had taken your course, the art ministry course, and I first approached them about having an art ministry, and they were like, well, because it's kind of new. And so then I talked with our pastor, and she said, well, what about a collaborative? What about, we just kind of get people together, and that way we don't have to call it a ministry, but we can still accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. So we started this Creative Visual Arts Collaborative. And we meet on Friday, the first Friday of every month, usually. Sometimes schedules change. And we do different kinds of crafts and creative activities. I have done Praying in Color, which is a book by, now the name escapes me, I think it's Sybil Macbeth. And it's about journaling and praying and using the coloring technique to kind of develop a closer relationship with God. We've had someone come in from another church, and we make cards. And it's just kind of that time where we make these, handcrafted cards that you can take home and have them, send them like birthday cards or Christmas cards or whatever. This Friday night coming up, we're doing since we live by the river and we live pretty close to the ocean too, we're doing crafts with oyster shells so that we can just kind of have that together time. And they'll go away with something. They're going to walk away with a craft that they can take home and be like something that I made. And then I also did a learn to quilt class.
I love that. Well, and I love a couple things that you said. First of all, it's cracking me up, the whole idea of we won't call it a ministry, but collaborative works. It's so true. And you kind of just work with the open door that's given to you. And so if collaborative is great, let's call it that. Whatever works.
Right.
And I think that's a really good thing to remember, and that we don't have to force this certain way of doing something, but just being willing to walk through the open door that's given. So I love that you're like, okay, yeah, if we're not ready for that, let's start small. Also really, really love that you guys did you say clams? that you're
Oyster shells.
oyster shells.
Yes.
It's amazing. It's beautiful. We don't have those in Texas so much.
Yeah.
Where I live.
They have like bucket, like you say to somebody, hey, can you get me some oyster shells? And they come back with a bucket full. Like, here you go. Like, they're all over.
Which, gosh, I mean, we could talk about that in and of itself. The idea of that's why art ministry can't look the same everywhere, because part of what you're doing is you're looking around at what's available. You're looking around at what's here. I can't take people to, the beach per se, but we can go take a walk in the woods. And so I love that it's such a good thing to remember, to think about what's around you, and that some of the sessions we do, some of the, not even sessions, just being with people creatively can be connected to the environment that we're in. So I love that. Okay. So I'm looking at the wall behind you, which with all your quilting stuff. And while you're doing those things with the collaborative, I know that your heart is quilting. I mean, you can see it. That's like your space is, it's quilting. So when did you first feel like, I think quilting could be more than just for me, but maybe this is a version of art ministry? What did that look like? How did that happen for you?
So I have struggled with that because for a long time, and if there's any quilters that watch this, they're probably going to throw their hands up, but I have struggled with for a long time with that being an art form, because, you take fabric that somebody else has designed. You take a pattern that somebody else has designed. You put it all together, you make a quilt, but is that really art? And I did a lot of prayer, and I would do a lot of struggling and internal struggling. Like, is this really art? But God kept kind of leading me back that way. And I can remember like sitting on the bed one night and being frustrated and being like, what, God, what am I doing? Like, what do you want me to do? I'll do whatever you want me to do. Just tell me what you want me to do. And he's like, it's quilting, silly. And I was like, okay, I don't know how this is going to work, but we'll try it. And a lot of the quilts that I've made or that I've given away to people, just because families struggling at Christmas time, give them a Christmas quilt. I don't know what they're going to do with it, but I know that he puts it on my heart to do that. So that's kind of where I've been. And since I've really kind of sat back and been like, this is what I love. This is what I really feel like I'm called to do. This is what I'm trying to embrace. Doors have started to open in ways that I didn't think that they were going to open.
And I love that, the question that you asked the Lord was just, what do you want me to do? And it sounds like he was going, what you love. I want you to do what you love, because that is the easiest way a lot of times, is just to look at the passion that he's already put inside of us. And I do think a lot of times we try and, look at what's already there and go, can I fit into that? But I love that God was just showing you, no, just look at what's around you. You love quilting. You're good at it. It's that. Let's use that. So what are some of the obstacles that you have found so far? And, first of all, if you've struggled with feeling like, oh gosh, can this be ministry? I'm assuming that you have also had other people look at you sideways and go, quilting is a ministry? Have you had that experience yet?
Yeah, sometimes I feel like people are saying, oh, isn't she cute? Now go sit in the corner. Like, and it's not, I don't feel they're being rude. But I just don't think that people think it's that way either. I think that people think it's kind of like I thought, that it's something that, it's somebody else designed, somebody else, kind of tells you how to put it together. You put it together, and it's not really an art form. And I think a lot of people think that they can't do it. And I think that's what kind of led me down. They look at these things that we put together and they're like, oh, I could never do that. And that's what's kind of led me down the path of, well, maybe I need to develop a learn to quilt class, because there's plenty of them out there. So let me see if I can kind of open the door to people that they can learn to do this for themselves, because it's, it takes a little bit of practice, but with every one you make, you get better. And I think just overall, people, people see beautiful paintings, like religious paintings or nature paintings, and they think, oh, that's so God inspired. That's so beautiful. But when you think about a quilter, they go into a store or they'll see fabrics, and that's also God inspired. When you're sitting there and you're looking at those things and you're like, yes, I can see that. I can put it together. I kind of know what this is going to look like and how I'm going to use this after it's done.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, I love quilts myself. I have a giant one hanging in my room called the Tree of Life, and it literally ministers to me every time I wake up in the morning. So I think it's in the same way that a canvas is hanging on the wall. So that's the finished product, though. What about the process? Do you feel like can be helpful and even like a healing tool for people in that process of quilting? There's so many cool things about quilting. And if you've never quilted, you might not even know the layers and the things that happen to go into it. But what are some of the parts of quilting that are kind of uniquely set up to be a space for people to process their, just what's going on in their lives?
I think when you besides just the buying of the fabric and looking at a pattern, there's also that time that you're spent preparing the fabric and you're spent sewing the fabric. That can be very meditative. That can be very one-on-one. And that's a lot of times when I just have everything off, don't have music on. But if you're sewing, you're what they call strip piecing. You're kind of sewing. But it can be a very meditative process, and it can be a very introspective process and a quiet time. And a lot of times that's where I get a lot of like insight and connection with God, is that quiet time that I'm spending at my sewing machine, kind of creating this thing that I feel that he's put on my heart so that I can do whatever he has planned for it when I'm done.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned the one-on-one, which one-on-one with God, in talking to him. But I feel like a lot of times in these creative spaces, sometimes it's about what we're creating, sometimes it's about the project we're working on, what we're doing, and sometimes it's like God brings relationships into our life, and sometimes it's just that's the open door, is bringing somebody else into our life, and he uses quilting or dancing or painting. So have you experienced anything like that yet, where just quilting got somebody in the door for a relationship?
Yeah, it was was going to teach a learn to quilt class, or that I did teach a learn to quilt class, and my pastor had called me up the day before, or a couple days before, and she said, hey, I'm going to highlight your class when we do the 5 minutes before. I just want to make sure you're going to be there. And I said, yeah, I'm going to be there. And so she gets up and she says, okay, we're having this learn to quilt class. If anybody can teach somebody how to quilt, it's Dolores. And she's sitting right over there if you have questions. And I raised my hand, not thinking anything of it. I hadn't even had anybody sign up yet. And the class was like a week away. Went through service, and I go to get up, and, you're chit chatting. And this girl comes like running up to me, and she goes, are you the person that's going to teach the learn to quilt class? And I was like, yeah. And she goes, I just moved here, and I have been praying that somebody is going to teach me. I'm going to meet somebody at church that's going to teach me how to quilt. And I looked at her, and I still get goosebumps to this day when I tell the story. She actually said, I'm going to meet an old lady that's going to teach me how to quilt. But she didn't tell me that until later on. And I said, okay, well, she said, but I can't do Thursday nights because I work. And I was like, okay, we'll figure it out. We'll get you together. Worked with the girl who originally had asked me to teach the class, and she wound up that she couldn't take it. So we moved it to a day when this girl could meet with me, and her daughter came, and I taught them how to quilt, and they've just finished 2 quilt tops that I'm going to put on my machine and quilt for them. But the interesting thing, in that relationship and talking to them, is we were about maybe 2 or 3 weeks into the class. It was going to go about 6 weeks. And I didn't hear from her. And usually, like, we would touch base and say, hey, are you still good for Sunday? Didn't hear from her. And I was sitting talking to my husband, and he said, well, why don't you just give her a call? See, if you want to, she's still going to be able to meet. And I texted her, didn't get an answer. And so then I tried calling her, and her husband answered the phone and said that she had been on her way to church and had been in a serious car accident. The car had been sideswiped. It rolled over, went into a ditch. She had her and her two daughters in the car. And they were at the hospital. And thankfully, everybody was going to be okay, but the car was totaled. And I was like, I said, what do you need? And what can we do to help? And he goes, I need a ride home. And he says, they only had one car. And I'm like, okay, we'll figure it out. And I called my friend who is in charge of our care team for our church. And we were able to kind of get the troops in order, as you would say. And, she went over to the church and waited for her to get out so that we could get her home. And we arranged, somebody loaned them a car for a week, and we had meals prepared for them for a week. And we've talked about this. I still see her on a regular basis. We have FaceTime every Monday afternoon where we talk about quilts. And it wasn't about the quilting. It was about meeting her and being her friend and being there for her when her family was going to go through this. It had nothing to do with, I could have been teaching her how to paint in an oyster shell. It didn't really matter. It was about the relationship. And honestly, I don't know where it's going to go from here. I wound up giving her one of my older sewing machines that still isn't great working order because she loves it. And she now is like looking at all these videos and thinking about all these things that she wants to make. And she's just so into it and she loves it. But it's more than I've made a relationship with her. I've made a friendship with her, and I can see that lasting a very long time.
I mean, you just hit the nail on the head that it's not about, you said it's not about quilting, but that could be, it's not about art. And truthfully, with any ministry, that someone's doing, it's about the person, because that's what God sees, and he sees their immediate need, whether that's emotional, whether that's physical, whether it's mental, and he will use any open door in order to meet the needs of his people. And so I love that you see that and that. And sometimes, and this is specifically to those who I think who are already doing art ministry or who are already doing that, sometimes we can forget and say, oh, how did it go? How did that session go? How did that thing go? And a good session, so to speak, is not the projects all turned out and it all worked out well, and then everybody walked out the door, and I had pretty pictures to put up. But like you said, sometimes it's just about the relationship, about meeting somebody for 5 months down the road when that might be the only connection that someone had to a believer or community, if they're already a believer, and you're the person that knew to call her, so that she didn't get lost. And I think there's so many, the creative arts is just this perfect way for us to reach people that get lost in the crowd and just kind of slowly pull them into community. So thank you. I thank you for sharing that. And it's a good reminder to me. It's a good reminder, I think, to all of us. You mentioned, I don't know where this is going to go, which amen to that. I mean, I literally feel that all the time. So I'm not really quite sure what's going to happen next, but we're kind of going with it. Do you see any either next steps, or do you have a vision for what this could be, even if you have no idea how to get there?
A couple of things keep ruminating in my brain. One of them was I feel like there's an opportunity to teach homeschoolers how to quilt. And I got on Facebook and I connected with a couple of local homeschool groups. And I said, hey, if I put this together, do you think this would be something that would be interested? The plan is to start teaching for them in December. They're, young girls, like I think 7 to 12. And they're just with their parents, and she said they would like to learn those kind of things because those skills are kind of, they're not available to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing,
it's kind of a lost art in many ways. We can go buy whatever we want, but I think there's so much beauty in, when you're making something for yourself that you're going to use or give away, you understand just the process. Again, I love the process. Like it's process,
Yeah.
not the product. So I think
Yeah.
it's beautiful. You're teaching the process.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing that I've kind of been kicking around, I've been following a group out of Washington State, I believe they are. But they actually went into a women's prison and started a quilt ministry in the prison. And I just keep praying that if that's the way I'm supposed to go, that he's going to open up the doors that will make that happen. It's a very, they've got a great process down, and they actually make three quilts that they make three quilts, two they give away, one they can keep for themselves. And I just think it's a great, an empowerment and a skill that they're going to learn, that when they get out of prison, they're able to take that with them.
What would you tell someone that was kind of a few steps, I won't say back, because it's not, just everybody has a different journey, but what would you tell somebody that's in that place where they're going, I feel this burning, I'm not sure who to reach out to, I'm not sure how to begin this?
Don't think that you're going to maybe have this big, huge class and you're going to teach 15 people and everybody's going to go home with a finished quilt. This class that I taught for this girl and her daughter was just the two of them. And but it made a positive impact in her life. And I think if you can have that connection and that impact with one person, that's success. That's furthering the kingdom. That is listening to him and doing what he wants you to do, because that one person is going to tell one person who's going to tell another person, and it's going to spread it. And now look at the opportunities that I've kind of just listened to him. I'm like, okay, and then I meet people that are like, well, you want to teach for me? And I'm like, okay, I'll see where this goes. Let's do it.
I love it. Amen. And yeah, I couldn't have said it better, that one person is it's enough.
Yes.
I am so thankful to hear your story and hear what God has done. But honestly, I feel kind of excited because I feel like there's so much more and so many more doors that God's opening too. I want to follow back up and talk to you in a year and see what doors God opened.
I would love that.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd want to share with us, or anything else that you feel like would just be encouraging to people that are either quilting or have art ministry on their heart?
Yeah, I think as far as the quilting, the art ministry, you have to be patient. It's kind of like we started, I tried to get an art ministry and then they said, well, what about a collaborative? Like, take the door that's open to you and walk through it and just see where it's going to go. And even if it doesn't stay where you think it's going to go and it goes off in a totally different direction, that's okay, because that's the path that he wants you to go on. And as far as the quilting, never think that's not an art form. If nothing else that I have learned in this is an art form. And this is a creative process. And this is another way where you and other people can connect to God.
Yes. Amen to all of that. Well, thank you so much. I really am so grateful for your time, and grateful and excited because I know you're not the only one. I know there are other people that are curious about what this could look like and how to use their gifts and the things that, like you mentioned at the very beginning, just that you love. There's something that you have been doing since you were 8 years old. And so
Yeah.
I think we'd both encourage you just to keep doing what you love. The more that you love what you're doing, it's infectious, and other people want to come join you if you are excited about what you're doing. So
Yes.
we bless you and bless the ministry that is happening, because it is ministry. We do know that it's ministry. No matter what we call it, we know it's ministry.
We'll let them call it whatever they want.
Absolutely. I do like the word collaborative. It's a great word, but we also know it's ministry. So, well, thank you, Dolores, and I hope you have an amazing day today.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for joining us for another session of Blank Canvases and stories of people being called into art ministry all around the world. Blessings, and we hope you join us again. Don't forget to check out createdministry.com for resources, tips, and ways that you can be trained in art ministry as well.